Okay, I mean it's time. Then Bob Goblin says, "You there, tree, give me all your gold." "No gold, huh? Alright, well, give me all your rocks." Ha! Then Bob Goblin says, "Huh?" "A horse! Perfect for Bandit Bob Goblin to make us get one. Yeah, horsey." Or when Lola says, let's get back to the Crystal Cave. I'm cold." And then Kai says, "You're right, let's get back to the Crystal Cave. Lola's getting really cold." Or when Wally says, "Yes, you are. We just saw you in the..." Just like that when Bob Goblin says, "Yeah, horsey." And then Bob Goblin says, "Ah, whoa, 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 what?" And then Bob Goblin says, "Easy, horsey, easy. Aha!" Then Bob Goblin says, "You there, help Bandit Bob Goblin slow this horsey down so he can throw his lasso." Then Bob Goblin asks, "Use your finger and tap the lasso." Then Bob Goblin says, "Got it, easy, horsey." And then Wally says, "There it is, Normal." Then Normal says, "What?" And then Wally says, "Bob Goblin," and the... Just like that when Wally says, "Bob Goblin," then Wally says, "What are you doing on my house?" Then Normal says, "Yeah." And then Bob Goblin says, "I am Bandit Bob Goblin, and this is my horse." And then Wally says, "Bob Goblin, it's my house." Then Bob Goblin says, "Nope, this is Bandit Bob's horse. His name is Horsey." And then Wally says, "Well, your horsey, it's our housey. It's where Normal and I live." Then Normal says, "Yeah." And then Bob Goblin says, "You can't live in the horse? That's so funny. Plus, can a house do this? Hey-ya!" And then Bob Goblin says, "Bandit Bob Goblin." Then Normal says, "Oh no." Or when Wally says, "Oh, Stan," then Stan says, "I'm not home." And then Wally says, "Yes, you are. We just saw you." Then Stan says, "Fine. What do you want?" Then Wally says, "You got an invitation. It's from your little sister, Marcia." Where Stan says, "My little sister, Marcia. She is so sweet and kind, and she's so tiny." And then Marcia says, "Hi, Uncle Stan. I can't wait to play with you." And then Stan up the swamp says, "Oh no, this is terrible." And then Wally says, "What's wrong, Stan? Don't you want to see your niece?" And then Stan says, "Of course I do, but she wants to play and she's coming to visit. I don't know how to play." And then Wally says, "Don't worry, Stan. We'll teach you how to play." Then Stan says, "But how?" Where Wally says, let me think. I know somewhere you can play. The playground." Where Stan says, "The play what?" And then Wally says, "You'll see. Follow us." And then Stan says, "I'll miss you, Swamp." Where Wally says, "See, the playground's a cool place to play. Like, you can swing, or go down a slide, or play on the monkey bars." Then Stan says, "The monkey bars? No way, I'm not a monkey." Then Wally says, "This is gonna be harder than I thought." I know, how about you could go down a slide?" And then Stan up the swamp says, "Why do you keep saying woohoo in the..." Just like that when Stan up the swamp says, "Why do you keep saying woohoo?" Then Wally says, "Because going down the slide is so much fun. Try it, you'll love it." Then Stan says, "Huh?" Then Stan said, "Woo." Ooh. Then Wally says, "Why are you sliding?" Then Stan up the swamp says, "Swamp monsters are very sticky." Then Wally says, "Okay, sliding is not your thing. What else you like to play?" Where Wally says, I know, how about you can play on the sandbox?" Then Stan of the swamp says, "A mud box.